of the 3rd Squad of the Shinsengumi.
Shizo Hijikata, assistant leader of the Shinsengumi. Okita, I recommend you stand down. That man over there, the infamous Batosai, the master. People's wolves are here.
What is up, guys? BT Ninja here to give you guys my Rurouni no Kaido Arc Chapter 46 review. Okay, guys, I know I've been on vacation for a while now, but I finally got back last week, and I wanted to do this video last week, but, you know, I had jet lag, and I was very exhausted, so I kind of delayed it until now. But here we are, finally. Before we get to the review, though, I want to share some items that I got. So these are my new acrylic stand of Kenshin and Kaoru from the upcoming anime. Really cool. These are great for my collection. Acrylic stands are very unique and interesting. So that's Kenshin and Kaoru. That is an exclusive Jump Festa item. I also got this one as an illustration board, Shishiki board of Kenshin, drawn by Watsuki, obviously, at Jump Festa. So this was sold at Jump Festa. I also got the Hitokiri Batosai illustration from Jump Festa as well. This is a photograph. They call it bromide in Japan. It is basically a photograph of Hitokiri Batosai. And this one is from the trailer that released, so you guys can see. Really awesome. Anyways, I wanted to share that. And finally, we have the new volume, which has Kenshin and Byakuya on it. So we'll be talking about some things, especially in my coming videos, about the content of Volume 8. So yeah. Anyways, let's get to the review. Alright, guys, now we're going to take a closer look at the chapter. Obviously, the beginning, we have Abe's wife waiting for him, and she sees him coming. This is after the battle, the night, you know, after the deadly battle. We see him with his wounds. She's very concerned. He says, "I'm sorry I'm late. Where in the world were you?" He mentions an apple a day never hurt anyone. This is actually a reference to an apple a day keeps the doctor away, which is surprisingly something that his wife also mentioned. And also, it is something that relates to Johnny Appleseed as well. But anyways, very interesting. His wife also wanted to know where in the world he was. He says Aburanakoji, which we all know is Kyoto. And so look at his eyes. Something has changed within Abe since the battle. And obviously he's referring to, I've been living in the past, but now I've decided to let it go. I'm finally able to move on. And he actually says this to his wife. Don't worry, I'm never going back. I'm leaving my government job to grow apples. So obviously he's leaving his past behind. He's finally accepting, you know, all of his failures as a way to grow. He's finally learning what Hattori Sensei was saying to him when he, you know, live on in the new era. So that was great to see, because he was actually in Sapporo, but he believed he was in Aburanakoji. Okay, the next day we get Abe's wife and his son, and Mishima is eating dinner as well. So he mentions that, wow, my dad was in the Shinsengumi, that's so cool. So it's interesting that he mentions this, because Mishima was all about the Shinsengumi before, but now it's actually Abe's son. So he tells his mom, he's like, well, I need to talk to him about it later, and she says, no, you won't, because there's gonna be, you know, kind of awkward silence and, you know, kind of looks, because obviously Abe still doesn't like the Shinsengumi, but he respects them, at least. Anyways, they talk about a wishes, you know, that Abe was here. We see Karafuto, and then Goro Maeno is pouring a drink for Nagakura, and he mentions what happened to the enemy. What happened to the enemy? Matasuke you know, the skull, Kyobe the skull. We see him surrounded by police officers. There's 12 of them. Look at this. He looks like a ginormous man. Like, look at this. He looks like Gulliver compared to those officers. Really interesting stuff. I think that the author was giving us a perspective of how big and how serious of an opponent he really was, and especially to the police, because he was almost unstoppable when he was with his brother and as the Skull. But anyways, I noticed it. The next thing we see the flying newspapers. We get Ichigawa taking all the credit for, you know, the defeat of the enemy. And then we get the leader of the swordsmen basically congratulating Nagakura and basically saying, I'll see you guys again. Nagakura and Saito, they realize that they're not getting any credit for all their work, and they're kind of annoyed at the fact that this guy is talking to him. And then Washio mentions that, man, you guys don't get any credit and you don't have any skills other than swordsmanship. So this causes kind of a confrontation between Abe and Saito. He's like, what did you say? And then Abe is like, hit that nail right on the head. What's wrong, Saito? So you get this kind of tense stare down. Pretty awesome, pretty funny. And then obviously the, you know, kind of the mediator Nagakura says, let's drink to that. They all have, you know, some drinks together. Great moment. And then Nagakura, this is another thing I noticed. He mentions that Abe was not at Aberonikoji. He says, you were not there. I remember it. And then he just gets pissed off because he was there. He was a witness to it all. But this is kind of the exaggeration of Nagakura using kind of for his memoirs. And it kind of reminded me of how he annoyed Kenshin. Remember, Kenshin was all pissed off that he kept saying that he was at Ikadaya incident. And then he kind of came up with this exaggeration. And then you got this, you know, kind of story he tells, his memoirs of, you know, of Aberonikoji, the monster of Hattori Sensei. And then, of course, the zombie of Kashitaro Ito. That's probably my favorite that he did. And then he goes on to say the Shinsengumi completely dominated and secured victory, and obviously this annoys Abe to no end. And then Saito's kind of indifferent, you know, just leave it alone. Kind of the same thing he did with Kenshin. But I need to point something out. These memoirs, yes, they are exaggerated. They do give some real truth, though. Nagakura actually did write real memoirs about his days in the Shinsengumi. So these may be exaggerated, but there is truth to them. So that is interesting. In fact, we would not know anything about the Shinsengumi if it wasn't for Nagakura's memoirs later in his life. So, and then we get Washio basically just saying, it's okay, guys, we're all losers. And basically everyone stares at him, and you get this kind of awkward moment. Saito explains that it was our own downfall. The Shinsengumi were too strong, and it was our own demise. And so that was a pretty cool scan, by the way, of the lightning basically hitting the flag of the Shinsengumi. And then it explains how it was all, you know, resolved and everything. Nagakura, this is something I noticed, he actually mentions to Abe that he loves apples. He really loves apples. And the reason is he has an apple on his jacket. And the reason is his wife sewed it on for him. And he says, man, you must really love your wife then. And you see a very embarrassed Abe, which basically confirms it. So I like that scene as well. You get another scene, Abe basically being told by Saito, you better grow the greatest apples in all of Japan. That's your path now. We kind of get a little backstory with, you know, kind of his wife telling him how he's a Johnny Appleseed of Japan. Then you get Washio basically saying, where are the women? He's supposed to get some women, and they're leaving. So this scene is very interesting. Saito in the middle. You got Washio all disappointed. You got Abe with the apple. Abe notices, as well as I did, the broken, you see the broken kind of hilt of the sword. It's all cracked. This kind of tells him that his time could be coming, you know, like someone is coming for him. Something bad could happen to Saito. It's time to get a new sword. It just shows kind of he's cracking. And so this is where Abe shows concern. He basically says, how long do you think you can live by Oxozan? And so Saito gives his respect. He shows that grin and he says, Abe-san, I thought you were going to mention how, you know, you're still in the midst of your youth, Hajime-kun. And then he's like, yeah, I guess I don't need to say anything. And he's like, it goes without saying. So we get this moment of respect between the two. People that hated each other finally learned to respect each other. I thought this scene was really great. And then he mentions to himself, how long will I live by Oxozan? Until the day I die. This scene is kind of reminiscent of Usui's death. Remember, Usui said the same exact question to him, and he said the same exact thing. So it's interesting that the enemy that's coming is related in some way to Usui, and he's connected to him. So that scene is kind of a precursor to what's to come. And obviously, the end of the chapter has Nagakura in the toilet, going to the bathroom, and obviously he realizes that Goro Maeno was the mole all along. He was the guy sending information to the enemy. So why did he do it, right? So that's my review, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. The next chapter we'll be looking at is obviously 47. And also, I am currently working on chapter 50 and 51. Chapter 49 is also being edited right now. I have an editor that's working on it, so look for more updates, and I will see you guys in my next discussion. Hopefully we got some good questions to talk about in my next video. I hope you guys enjoyed.